welcome Facebook. We're so glad you're here. Yeah, I know it's raining, the more you're tuned in, but you should be here. Come visit us. Yeah. So anyway, at today's class, we are talking about planting, just how to install, how do you plant. And so Will is my lead plant supervisor. He has been all over the county. Didn't you go to Tucson last year or something?
We had one of our crew members go to Tucson for delivery because I think we were the last nursery in the state that had blue hoop spruces left.
Yeah.
So we go all across the state. I go all across the Quad Cities mostly. I've actually grown up here my whole life. So, you know, working for this is kind of just an extension of me digging holes as a kid anyway, so.
Anyway, I couldn't think of anyone better to explain what kind of soils you're looking at. Will knows. He'll respond to that hole and go, I don't think that thing's going to grow here. We need to shift this over. Or we need to take a jackhammer and fracture that down. So he's a go-to. So the way it's going to work today is Will's going to explain what he sees in the field, how he installs it, and then I thought I'd go over a few plants, what you're seeing blooming now. Before I ask him what's that thing blooming, I'll explain that and just show you some plants you can install in your yard this spring right now, and they would thrive. So it seems like a good format. All in 50 minutes or less.
Yeah,
we promise.
Definitely. So I think the biggest thing you guys will have and in your heads is my soil's too tough for me to plant. You know, you've dug in there, you've seen it, you know, maybe some of you guys have had new houses and you've seen underneath yard rock in the yard. It can be pretty intimidating, especially if you guys are from an area originally that's a little more rich, the Pacific Northwest. But the soil here is great. It's just scary looking. It's filled with rocks. It's sandy.
Says the guy with 2 jackhammers on the truck.
I use my jackhammers maybe every other month. I do almost everything by hand. A shovel, maybe a pick, and I can get almost everything up to like 25, 30 gallon trees done. I think the biggest thing is you have to be able to understand what the plant is experiencing. You know, they just react to things different. We might see a soil, you know, that is, to us, would be impossible. We couldn't imagine how something would break into the ground, but the plants will do it. You know, they're more persistent than we are. They do things on a whole different level, and it's very impressive what they'll cut through. Usually, when I come onto a site, we'll clear away all of the excess stuff on the top: yard rock, weed cloth. If you guys have plastic, I try to cut away as, you know, just enough to get the hole done. You guys don't have to go crazy with it. I'll go down as tall as the root base is.
There you go. Here, I'll get it.
No, there you go.
I'll get you a display platform. So we want to get it where the Facebook folks can see it as well. So.
It can be kind of tricky sometimes. Sometimes you'll have a plant that the root base is its entire pot. Sometimes you'll pull it out and the root base will only be holding on to about maybe the top half of the dirt that's packed in there. Some of your big evergreen trees actually come wrapped in burlap around their root base, and all the rest of the dirt in that big pot is all just loose dirt. So it can really depend on the size of the hole you dig. Generally, I go about twice as large as the pot is around, and only, again, as tall as the root base is. When you set that tree in there, it should only be sitting, the crown, right where the trunk touches the root base, should be at ground level with the rest of your ground. You'll bring in all that dirt, you amend it as you're working it. I fertilize it usually as I'm turning it. I'll add in the water's mulch.
Sure, here. I got you covered. Keep talking here.
I usually do about a third of the overall dirt that I've taken out. I'll add back in as mulch. I'll mix that in until it's pretty heterogeneous, looks pretty similar. I'll toss in the mulch. I'll mix that in really well as well. You really can't go too far mixed. You can get it pretty well mixed. And then you just kind of put it in there, pack it in, put a little bit more dirt in there, start to pack it in until you're bringing it level with the rest of the dirt. I'll usually do a well, basically kind of bringing up the ridge around the pot and kind of making a little, like a moat around a castle, just to kind of help that water drive right onto the top of the root base and drain over the roots. Once that's all done, the ground has been packed, you've made your well, you're now watering. You'll want to water in your plants pretty much as soon as you can, but pretty much right after you get them in the ground. Once you feel like they're solid in there and they're straight and you're happy where everything's going and it's packed, you can get it watered in and you're pretty much done. After that, it's going to be plant care, making sure these guys are happy and just keeping them from developing any illnesses from then on.
You said that you fertilized it.
Yeah.
You're using this fertilizer. The question I have for you is, do you blend it into the mix or do you put it on top?
You can do both. When I plant new plants, meaning I'm taking a fresh virgin ground, digging a hole, I'll always try to mix it in. But sometimes, you'll be fertilizing plants that are already established. That's when you'll kind of just put it right onto the ground, soak it into the ground. But yeah, when I plant, I always try to mix it in. It brings the mulch all the way around the tree, sometimes even under, if you get that dirt under there, and it just kind of encompasses it. It really makes it so none of the roots are missing any nutrients. They're not missing a spot where there's no fertilizer. It's nice and even.
What I do when I'm planting, before I come out, if there's a whole bunch of them, let's say a row of Arizona cypress, you want to screen off your neighbor's living room, whatever. If I'm doing a whole bunch of them, I'll dig the holes. I'm going to screen some of that soil. Sometimes there's rocks and boulders. You get stuff in there. Anything bigger than a golf ball, I try to get out of there, and then I'll add the mulch, and I'll blend that in and backfill in a system. Just keep going, and then all at once, I'll fertilize all the top part of that root ball, so I gain some efficiencies. If I'm just coming out to plant one tree, there I'll try to blend the fertilizer in with the mulch. What I find is there's zero difference. It doesn't matter if it's in the ground, around the roots, or on top. The fertilizer releases and the plant has access to it.
It's equally effective.
Just get it on there is the main thing. You need some nutrients in your soil. This helps those new root hairs that will form pretty quickly. It'll help the root hairs feed those. You'll get a larger, chubbier root mass.
You said first of the dirt and then the mulch and then the fertilizer?
So all three of those materials will be mixed together. So you'll dig it out, you'll have all of this extra dirt, you'll put it into a wheelbarrow or whatever, right off to the side, and you'll add the mulch, is usually what I'll do next, and you'll mix that in until it's all one, it just looks the same all the way around, and then you'll add the fertilizer again. But like you said, the fertilizer can go after you guys have planted it, watered in, it can go onto the root base, it can go in your mix. The mix just can be easier, like you said, for one tree, when you guys are just doing one at a time. I find it easier to just kind of have all three of them together, mixing, so it's all just one material that you're putting back in.
The biggest mistake I find rookies make, or new gardeners, is plants don't like different kinds of soil. They like consistency, just like you and I do. We like consistency in temperature, consistency in our humidity, consistency. Roots do not like a layer of mulch, then a layer of regular soil, then a layer of, they will not be happy with that. So you do want to blend that up with your soil that you dug out of that hole, add some organics in there, and then backfill around consistency is the key. With that mixture, you're going to attract more worms, the birds are going to be active, the mycorrhizals will start to activate, and the soil actually becomes alive. Even the deadest soil, so when you're actually you're trying to garden dead soil. I mean, there's just nothing. You took that topsoil, you poor folks out in the Prescott Valley, Grandville, brand new areas.
All the
they
subdivisions.
took that backhoe off and they just scraped off all the good stuff. They put your footers and your patios and stuff in. And there's literally, you won't find one worm, there's nothing in there. So you want to reactivate that by adding some organics, the mulch, the food that we recommend, the all-purpose 744. It's an organic fertilizer. It's got cottonseed meal. It activates all of that nutrients into your ground. And then, just a little secret, you don't let my competitors know. We're kind of noted as a place where our plants live. Here's why. Bottom line. We inject every single plant with mycorrhizal fungi. It's a living organism that's beneficial. The plants feed off of, and it's a symbiotic thing we work with. So anytime you put this plant in the ground, it's got mycorrhizal fungi that will now migrate into your surrounding soil and help it root out faster. We're after fast roots. We need fast, whether it's a flower, a tomato, a shrub, a rose, a new spruce tree, you need roots as fast as you can. And we know that your soil, your yard doesn't have any, so we're just kind of helping you out. And so we've got fancy injector systems that go to the hose and really help it. You just get everything inoculated. It helps your roots form faster. That's kind of why our plants grow over others. Yeah. Oh, gophers. So our question was, because the rain's kind of, it's hard. So do you put a screen if you've got gophers? So some of you have gophers. How many people have gophers? Okay, half the group. Amazing. Wow, half the group. That's like bad. Gophers deserve to die. So trap them, kill them, don't gas them, whatever. But if you really have a lot of them, we do have gopher cages. They actually make a stainless steel screen.
It goes right over the root base, and we'll just put it in and bury it around. So as soon as they get to that, their little fingers are going to hit that, sharp metal wire, and they're just going to immediately back off. We also carry a product called Molmax.
Bring that. I wasn't thinking in those terms.
Yeah. If the issue is getting to the point where it's not really encroaching in on your yard, but you can tell that the gophers are there. You're seeing them near your edges of your fences, but they're not in your yard yet. You can always try to deter them with Molmax. It essentially makes the ground around it and in that you put into not killing toxic, but certainly they will smell it, they will taste it as they're working through the soil, and they'll immediately be put off. I've actually used it in my own house. I had a gopher problem. Now that gopher problem has moved over into state land.
Yes.
So no more gophers.
If they're actually in your yard?
Yeah.
Yes. Usually though, if you're going to be planting a new plant in a yard that you haven't had a lot of gopher problems, the shield is really very good because the Molmax is great, but it doesn't kill them. And if they're already there in large numbers, sometimes it's just not enough. They'll already be looking for roots and bugs and all kinds of things in your soil, causing all kinds of uproots and air pockets underneath your planted trees, all kinds of negative things. The Molmax is to kind of keep them away. Once they're already in, it's time to start killing them.
It's actually a repellent.
Yeah.
Organic repellent. It's made from castor bean oil. So you get castor bean. You take too much castor bean oil, what happens? You get the runs and start not feeling so good. So it gets it on their fur, they preen themselves, and they get the runs, they go away. It's short term. Lasts for about 6 to 9 months. The long-term solution, fencing. That's just the actual cage system that works longer term. Okay. Oh, got it. Good point. So there's 2 types of poisons. We only sell one here. Strychnine, please stay away from that. It's so dangerous for you. If you touch it, it's dangerous. That's one that has a rekill. If it kills the thing, and then if a coyote or your dog or something else eats that, the kill pattern keeps going down the line. Strychnine never loses strength. We don't sell that for obvious reasons. We sell zinc-based baits. That one has a 1 kill. So if the gopher eats it, and a gopher and a coyote eats that, there's no secondary kill. So that's, if you're going to use poisons, we can give you a one-on-one lesson if you have that. Really hone you in so you don't make a mistake. So we've got trapped baits and poisons all down there. We're gopher masters. I've killed literally thousands of gophers. I know how to do it. I can help you with that if that's something else. So yeah, be very, very careful. I've heard of birds of prey being killed, and falcons and kestrels and hawks, eagles being killed because they're eating something dead on the ground. You got to be really careful with that. So anyway, good point. This is not a gopher class.
Yeah.
This is a planting class.
But as far as the process for doing this, again, the biggest thing you're probably going to be worried about is the spot good enough? That's what the amendment is for. That's not just for fertilizer for, as like Ken was saying. We're basically kind of bringing the old dead soil back to how it was when plants were living there and cultivating the soil and mulching it on their own. As far as the digging, like I said, shovel and pick is what I use all the time, but if you really do have tough stuff, it can be really beneficial for you to invest in things like gypsum. Gypsum is something that I don't really very often use, but can be really helpful for things like, does anybody here know what I mean when I say caliche? Okay, so caliche, for those of you who don't know, is a type of soil that we see a lot in the Southwest, particularly here, that it mimics very much to what we've created concrete out of. It's a very, very, very dense clay-based soil with sand, silica, and small rock in it that once it gets wetted and then dries back out, it becomes so dense and hard that I've bounced picks into my knees and stuff digging into it. Yeah. So if you have this kind of stuff, you'll know. It will become immediately apparent because it'll feel like no matter where you dig, it's rock. It's caliche. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do that. The gypsum, I really like. It's a chemical. It's a
calcium sulfate.
Yeah.
Calcium sulfate. It's a mined mineral that helps flush the soil.
And it will flush it, it will break it down. Basically, after a period of time that it's been applied and wet and watered in, it will break down those hardened clays to allow you to kind of bust into it and kind of break it in. I also see people sometimes they'll use gypsum after they dug the hole to ensure that the ground underneath is available. You'll want to be kind of careful with that because high concentrations of gypsum can, in some cases, toxify your plant. I've seen places where, crews will come by and they'll throw in way too much gypsum into the bottom, and then when I go to replace the dead plant, now that they've got a dead plant, I dig underneath there and I find hardened pockets of this gypsum that have just been consolidated, and the plant's been drawing off of that now. And it's so it's definitely a handy thing. But I find that just a little bit of elbow grease with a pick and a shovel, 90% of your holes will be able to be dug with just
How
that.
often do you actually run into caliche?
Caliche, Prescott Valley, I see a lot more of it. Williamson Valley, the farther north you go on Williamson Valley, the more I see it. But generally, I see the most of it out. Does anybody live underneath Mingus Mountain? Coyote Springs? Okay. So I'm from Coyote Springs. I grew up right there. Yeah, okay, so I know exactly where you're from. That ground out there is ripe with caliche. Some areas, it's kind of this tilled, like rancher soil, what cows would be living on, and then you'll go 15 feet over, and you'll hit just a stripe of just this thick, rock-solid caliche. I'm sure a lot of people here live in subdivisions. Yeah? If you guys, a lot of subdivisions, like we talked about, they'll scrape off a large amount of soil and they'll reflatten the areas. When they do, sometimes whole stretches of caliche will either be exposed or relaid under where your house is going to be. And then, the pavers come in, they pound it all flat, they get it nice and solid for the foundation. So now that caliche's not only been put there where it wasn't originally, it's been packed and solid, solidified underneath your yard rock.
You'll see caliche layers on a road cut, like going up to the mall or something. You'll see this light-colored band of soil going through. The soil comes in bands. The lighter colored kind of looks chalky. That's caliche. If you see that, the best way to do it is just take a pick or a digging bar or jackhammer or something and try to. Once you get through that to the next layer, it starts to drain just like that.
It's naturally it's found in bars, like you said, just kind of veins, and so you can either bust through it. Sometimes it's better to just kind of, possibly move the hole. The plant would be fine, but again, it comes down to if you guys can't dig the hole, you'll never put the plant in. Yeah. So sometimes it's easier to kind of move away from it.
If you can't dig the hole, don't plant the plant. Also, if you're wondering if it's too hard, if you don't know drainage, the hole's got to drain, you're just not sure, especially if you're planting yourself, you've got time to really make sure it's going to do well. Dig the hole. The next morning, fill it up with water. And at the end of the day, if you still have water still sitting there, you didn't dig a hole. You dug a bathtub.
Yep.
I mean, nothing's going to grow in that, they're going to rot. So now you need to dig what we call a chimney, cleaning up the whole planting hole out, but a piece of it until you get to the next layer or band of soil, and all of a sudden it will start to drain. Test it again and plant it. Many times folks will kill, especially evergreens. They're really sensitive to drainage, overwatering. So when we're taking evergreens out, we really emphasize make sure it's going to drain. If you're in doubt, dig a chimney or Take your jackhammer, try to pick through, make sure it drains before you plant there.
I have my guys do this all the time. And it's super easy. A lot of the times we'll dig a hole. If we're worried about its drainage, we'll fill it up with water and we'll move on to the next one. And you know, if we're lucky, everything will drain right. Sometimes we've had the situation where, you know, goodness we checked, because if we hadn't, this tree would have died next year.
Yeah, we're planting for you. We're on the hook for 2 years. It's guaranteed for 2 years.
We take it very
We want
seriously.
it to live. We don't want another crew coming out in 18 months to replace it.
I personally put my boys and my reputation personally on how many replacements we do every year. I try to keep that number as low to zero as possible. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that you'll see. I think it's a good time to talk about things to not plant into.
Let me tell them, we're going to send this to you. It's our water thinking guide. This is our training guide for the crews.
And it's also
We
usually
get it out here. It goes over all of this. And it tells you how much of each thing by size of plant. I thought I'd email that to you. And then also I've got, I put together a list here, mainly for my landscape designers. They're always putting these designs together. I need a shrub that blooms that's 4 feet tall. I just put together a quick list. It doesn't have very much, but it's got the top 10 or 15 like showy fall colored trees, the top flowering trees, shrubs over 4 feet, shrubs under 4 feet. That's shade trees. It's front and back. It doesn't tell you what they are. It just says, look at these. And these are the plants for here. In this central Yavapai County. I thought I'd send that to you as well. So those 2 things will come your way probably tomorrow in an email for you. It'll be a link that just goes, click that. It'll be a PDF. You can download it at your convenience. If you want that, put your email right here. It'll be to you tomorrow, okay? Otherwise, after the class, I have 2 copies only for our reference. You're welcome to take them if you're first and foremost. Otherwise, they'll be in your inbox like that, okay? Pretty quick. Okay.
Does it talk about building a tree?
Does it talk about what?
With the water, how you said when you dig the hole and then water the next day, they can chimney?
No,
So,
it doesn't mention
so you're
that.
maybe thinking a chimney like up. It's more of a break. It's more of, I would think more of like an escape route, an escape tunnel. So it's an escape tunnel farther down into the hole to allow that drainage. It doesn't need to be the same size as the hole. And actually what you'll end up doing is actually covering it up anyway with loose dirt. It's actually only for the water to break into the next level. And again, I don't really do that very often. 90% of your soils, 95, will be drainable. You know, very rarely do you use things like gypsum or deal with things like caliche and have to do things like chimneys. Most of the time, the water and the plants won't have trouble with it. It'll be the people. People have trouble with soil. And as far as things, you know, that I would say are like no-goes, rock tables. For you guys that live closer up towards Granite Mountain or Thumbview.
Forest Trails right here.
Okay, my mom lives up in Forest Trails. I know exactly what you're talking about. You'll dig down into beautiful, rich, you know, mulch soil, 8 inches. And then right underneath that, there is a granite boulder the size of a Volkswagen. And you can try. I've had people tell me that they've, you know, chiseled out bowls into the top of boulders. I've heard all kinds of crazy things. But if you get to a point where, you know, 4 inches this way, 4 inches this way, 4 inches this way, it's all rock, you're probably going to have to really rethink about where you put that plant. Another thing, too much water. If you guys have a wash where every rainy season you know water is going to be coming through there, don't plant your trees in the bottom of the wash. It'll seem really enticing because the soil will be really rich. It'll be really easy to dig. You'll be able to get a good sized hole in 15, 20 minutes. But if that rain comes in and it gets just inundated with water, not only is it could disroot and immediately damage your plant, but more than likely it'll probably drown it, cause massive overwatering problems. I see a lot of problems from overwatering. It links to insect growth. It leads to molds. It leads to mildews. I've replaced plenty of evergreens where the very crown, right where the root touches the trunk, has been rotted all the way through because they water 15 minutes every day, or they left it on to soak for 4 hours, every week or something like that. It happens all the time.
If you're going to kill them, it'll be from overwatering. Just just to let you know.
Underwatering is so easy to pick up on, and it's the easiest thing to fix because all it takes is more water. But you can never pull the water back out of the plant. Once it goes in and the plant decides to try to absorb it, it will. Have you ever had your dog try to eat too much food and they get sick? Same thing with the plant. The plant doesn't know that it won't be getting, more water later on, or it might, it just is trying to get as much as it can. And sometimes they'll end up doing it to their detriment.
You're really planting for 2 planting seasons. The rainy seasons that we have here, the monsoon rains in the summer, usually August, that's when you're going to overwater because you're watering your regular summer. June was hot, you're watering. Then you get an afternoon rain 2 or 3 times a week. The plant becomes overwatering in the month of March. March is our second wettest month. And frequently we'll get a heavy snow like last night. Very heavy, like this much snow, but the trees are just weighted down because the snow is so heavy. And it saturates the ground. All of a sudden you'll get root rot at that point. So it's super important, what Will had mentioned, make sure that root ball is at soil level or even a little above. Never go below. This is a curse that Phoenix gives us. They want us to put it in a ditch or a divot to rain harvest. You do not want to do that up here. You'll overwater your plants guaranteed during those 2 times, those 2 wet patterns. At or a little above, and put your drip emitter on top of that, or you put your water well around it. And again, this handout shows you that. But that's what we're trying to explain as well.
It's so easy, especially because a lot of the times you'll want to be done digging sooner rather than later. So if you set it down, if it's an inch above, you can always bring your soil level higher. It's called mounding. I do it a lot. Very rarely is it what I would consider like a bad thing. The going below the ground level is usually terrible, and even in places where it might work, one mistake, one day where you're just not watching the water or rain comes in on top of your irrigation, you've got a serious problem.
Another mistake I've seen made, just while we're talking things to watch for, don't dig the hole too deep. The reason we say only dig it as deep as the root ball, if it's a 15-gallon plant, maybe it's that big a hole, it's a 5-gallon, whatever the depth of the bucket is, roots do not go down. That's a myth. There is no taproot. There's nothing down there for them to go after. Just more caliche, rocks, boulders. Roots, the taproot goes down about 12 inches, hooks are right, I call it the hockey stick. It starts running out, because that's where the water and the food is. When we get these rains, the rain is going to saturate the first maybe couple feet, and then it's not going to go any further. The root's going to stay up where the moisture and the nutrients are. So don't dig a real deep hole, because if you do that, you have a lot of fluffy soil down there, and then when you plant it, you'll be at level, but then you water it for a month, everything settles. So all of a sudden, now you're down in a divot, and during the monsoon, the wet patterns, it'll start to drown the plant. We're trying to mitigate the wet cycle is what we're doing.
And a lot of people I've had some customers specifically ask me to backfill with the mixed native amended soil. I always try to talk them out of it. I try to place the root ball itself on the bottom of the hole that you cut. Its bottom should be touching native soil. Because again, kind of like what Ken's saying, it's not going to go that far down. But even if it does, it really is going to be going this way. It's going to be going out, maybe diagonal a little bit, but it's got to cut through all that stuff that you're going to be putting onto the side of it. It's going to be leading into all that good nutrients and good stuff. So putting in under layer, is it terrible? Maybe not, but it's certainly more digging that you guys have to do, more backfilling. It's just an extra little 15 minutes worth of work that you guys will never get back.
Or you'll hit one more boulder, now it's another 2 hours.
Exactly.
You never know. It's just better to go shallow and wide and saucer shape. That's the shape of the hole you should have.
And generally, a lot of you guys are not going to have a lot of issues with digging. I find that the 2 biggest issues I have are existing roots and the rocks. Rocks can be fun, but I find them fun. I think it's fun. I think it's fun because I messed up.
You should see what he brings back off the truck. He's bringing all this gunk. He's just filled my dumpster with boulders and roots and stuff. He's been out planting.
We used to have a trophy lot where I would bring back big rocks I would find, but I find that if you have a lot of roots in the place where you're putting, especially if it's off of another tree, you want to be careful. You know, you certainly don't want to cut into a really important tree or a root for your tree over here. But also at the same time, if you really need it in this spot, sometimes, you know, cutting through few little feet of roots can be okay. The rocks, I find that moving one big rock sometimes will dig you your hole right there. But also I find that a lot of little rocks will create issues, especially on the walls. Sometimes I'll hit a rock and I'll loosen it just enough to form a little air gap, a little air pocket underground there. Now if I don't remedy that and I bury it, well, air pockets underground, bad news. So you gotta wanna, you know, again, if you're doing this by yourself, you'll have plenty of time.
You're gonna scare them.
I know, right?
We're just trying to
There's all kinds of little things that you'll wanna look for, but generally you guys are just gonna be cutting in, shaping it into a bowl, putting the tree down, and making sure that your amendment is looking good.
Here's what I do for myself. I do a lot of planting. I've got a lush landscape, half acre. It's beautiful. If it's 10 gallon and below, I plant it myself. I go home and go, oh, this is gonna be fun. And half a day, oh look, it's so fun gardening, yay. If it's a 15 gallon or above, I go, Will, put me on your board, come put this thing in for me, because I've had 2 back surgeries. And that's, all of a sudden, that's a big hole. And it's not fun anymore, so it just works. So you can blend the thing together, or you'll have this handout if you got a gardener or something for yourself, you go, here, do it this way, I have the parts. Go make this happen for me. So you can blend that together yourself. Yeah.
Do you ever build up, like making islands with rock around it?
You can do a raised bed.
Certainly, and I find that sometimes, especially when I'm cutting into a slope. So when I'm cutting into a slope, when the ground is flat, you cut right in, right? Well, when the ground is like this, the instinct is to just gut in like this, right in diagonal. But no, you're going to cut in from the top. And what I'll do is I'll cut the dirt in, and I'll push it out, and I'll make myself a little flat spot, where then I'll dig this new hole. But sometimes the slope can be so extreme that what I'll do is I'll cut the front part of the hole in, bring that dirt out, and I'll start to stack rocks and solid stuff up in front of there. You don't want to do it directly touching the root base. What's touching the root base, and for the next 4 inches outside of that, should be all that amended, good, you know, water's fertilizer, water's mulch, mixed dirt. But outside of that, you can have rocks and solid, you know, pieces of the landscape holding that wall up. Because eventually, after a year or 2 years, all that will be interrun with roots. It'll all be holding itself. But you kind of want to just give it the perfect little situation for the next 2 years to get it to where it'll root through all that dirt, hold itself in that spot, and make it nice for itself.
Another little secret with that too, just while we're on grades, so not to complicate it, but some mistakes, some goofball things, kind of you look at it and go, oh, that doesn't quite look right. Trees you're going to knock out, just like you said. You need a flat spot because trees grow to the moon. They grow straight up. Shrubs are different. Shrubs, I generally don't do that.
Yes.
If I want a ground cover looking thing, do I bring anything like this, like rosemary? Here, I would not plant it, cut it out and go straight. Here, I would put that in the same angle as the grade of the hill. And I put the drip emitter on top of that, and the water will drip through this, so it looks like it's been growing there, like it naturally sprung up, just going out of this hillside. It looks better. It looks more designer-esque when you get done. So everyone wants to cut a hole into this hillside. Sometimes you don't need to do that with a shrub. You can just plant it with the same elevation. Does that make sense? Did I explain that well enough? Okay, gotcha. Let's just simplify. Let me just wrap this up. So if I can take my radio personality, just make it in 90 seconds or less. Here's what you do. The hole is the same depth. Put a bucket on each side, make it rounded, saucer shaped. Take that soil you got, screen out anything bigger than a golf ball. Roots, rocks. Blend in about 1 shovel's mulch, this stuff. Premium mulch, or if you're a compost, do not use manure. Too hot. You want to use mulch. Okay, mulch. I got to explain that for my Midwest folks. Midwestern folks say mulch is like bark. Bark dressing? No, we're talking about composted material. That's what we define mulch as in the West. You're going to take 1 shovel of this for every 3 shovels of native soil, blend it together. Just blend it till it looks uniform. You backfill around the root ball, pack it in so there's no air pockets. You want it to be at soil level or even a little above. Then you're going to sprinkle in on top the all-purpose plant food, recommended amount on top. You're going to water it in when you're all done with Root and Grow. This is a composted tea. It helps with the transplant shock. So this is like, when you take this plant out of this bucket, it's like open heart surgery and brain surgery at the same time. It's that shocking to the plant. It's,
no matter how
it's going into some stress.
Yeah.
And so this helps to neutralize, helps to get the plants stressed, less stress. So I always mix up a 2-gallon watering can before I even start. It's just sitting there waiting to go. And then when I'm all done, I'll water it again. A little insider tip for me, these are my 2 personal things that I do. At the bottom of every planting hole, anything I plant, whether it's a tomato, a flower, anything I plant, I always, this is what I do, it's kind of the extra step. Aqua Boost crystals are, how do I explain this? Soil polymers. They hold like 200 times their weight in water, so this thing will swell up to like a 5-gallon bucket. So I'm going to try to hold the moisture at the root ball. That, and as they shrink and swell, they keep the soil aerated. And then this specific variety, we actually infused them with mycorrhizal fungi. So we've actually put the beneficial things plants like inside the crystals. So now I'm encouraging more roots, and then it holds the moisture there. So again, June is hard here. So I'm trying to mitigate that heat of June. And the Aqua Boost crystals, at the bottom of every hole, I just sprinkle a little bit in there. That's what I do. And then I water it in with this thing right away. Just have it sitting there waiting to go. In the summer, it gets a little weird. Summer, May and June are our driest months. There's a prevailing southwest wind that just blows 10% humidity. The soil gets crusty. There, what I do, and Will's already alluded a little bit, but specifically, I'll dig the hole, I'll fill it halfway with water, mainly to hydrate the surrounding soil. What happens is you'll plant this thing and then you'll water it in, and you did water this root ball, but the surrounding soil is so dry in that midsummer, it wicks all that water right away, and all of a sudden you find my plant is dry. I find if I'll fill it halfway up before I put the plant in, it helps me with some of that, just some personal experience.
A little pre-soak.
Done. So with that, I think, why don't you explain staking trees?
Yeah.
Because that's one that gets confusing.
So most of you are going to live in an area where you'll want to stake. There are very, very, very few situations where you don't want to stake a tree or anything that's really, my rule of thumb is any deciduous tree, any 5-gallon to 25-gallon, if it's going to grow big, wide, leafy leaves and get all that wind pushed on it, you're going to want to stake them. And any evergreen above like a 15-gallon, 10-gallon, stuff like this, it's okay. But if it's above right about here, you'll want to stake them. You can go with lighter or heavier situations depending on the tree, but you'll always want to have at least 2 stakes on either side with a strap or a line going across that'll hold it in the middle. Basically, it keeps them from disrooting. Disrooting is when the wind pushes it out of its hole, exposing the roots. Now, after a certain amount of years, obviously, that's never going to happen. The wind will only be able to push the tree, the plant mass above the ground, so much. The roots are always going to be strong enough to hold in there. But in that first year, 2 years, there's a lot of times where the wind will come by, especially in those gusty parts of early summer, and if it's freshly been watered or it's just a little too loose, it'll disroot and it could kill your plant. So all you'll want to do is just drive in 2 stakes right here
on the trunk. Do the trunk thing.
We'll attach a line right here. I'll bring it across the trunk and attach my other end of my line to here to the trunk. Now you see it allows a little bit of movement, not too much, just enough to where the tree is still reacting to the wind and its roots understand that, okay, I'm being hit with wind, I need to entrench. Because that's what really kicks off that root motion, is the wind will hit it, it realizes how much deeper it needs to sit, and it'll keep kind of entrenching and hooking itself. Now, the little catch-22 with the stakes. I always tell people, you never want to keep the trees in the stake setup longer than 2 years. You might end up pulling them off sooner than that. But 2 years, 2 years in a day might be okay, but 2 years is really when I tell people, you got to pull the stakes off. If you're worried, sometimes I tell people you can always take the strap and the line off, leave the stakes, and if you see that the tree is still having a lot of trouble, you can always rewire it later and give it more time. But at about 2 years, there really isn't any situation where your tree shouldn't be hooked in strong. If it hasn't rooted by 2 years, strong enough to hold against the wind, something's wrong with that tree.
Time to buy a new house.
Yeah.
So when you'll see this in your neighborhood, if you walk around, you'll see fruit trees that are leaning. And they're leaning to the northeast typically. So you get this southwest wind that happens. And so they start to leaf out in the spring, they start to get pushed, they start to lean this way. Now they'll load up with apples or pears, they'll load up with fruit, and they literally will fall out of the ground.
Yeah.
It's like, just like Will was saying.
Just that weight.
Shade trees, they'll do the same thing, and shade trees won't fall out of the ground because they don't fruit, but they just look funny.
And they'll bend and
You don't
bend
want-
and bend.
You want them to look straight. You just want them to look shady. So you can tell which trees were not, and once they get to growing like that, there's no correcting. You cannot pull them back. They get so strong you can't pull back. Your evergreens, you really want the bigger evergreens. What will happen is very early fall and very late spring, we'll get this really heavy wet snow. All that snow will load up on the surface, and all of a sudden they'll just go, and they'll just fall right over. Again, they'll fall out of the ground. You want to prevent it. It takes about a year to 18 months or something for the roots to get out long enough to be able to take the stakes off. So exactly what Will was saying is spot on.
And my own personal opinion, just to clarify, Waters is the only people that do these canvas straps. I'm sure you've seen in your neighborhoods and in your neighbors, they have sometimes the irrigation. They'll have black cords that will hook on instead. And instead of going just across, they'll have it hooked from 2 angles. Well, you're really hurting your tree because not only does the 2 angles pull from either side, force the tree to stay rigid, even against wind. If for some reason that tree is really, pushing up, it's growing a little, just as fast as they normally would, or maybe a little extra fast, I've seen the irrigation tubes really cut in and hurt trees as they grow. These things are great because after 2 years, they'll be dry and crispy and, they'll be ready to break off. This will never hurt your tree. Even if for some reason you sold your property and the tree is still staked, it's been 4 years, the tree will rip this thing off. And it will never hurt your tree. And that is, we are the only people that I know of that use this canvas strap, and it has helped so many trees that I have seen being able to not have any damage, not get scarred, and still be able to hold strong in the wind.
And they call this thing a V-strap because it looks like a V, or it could be called a A-strap. TP strap, it's not an A, it's call it a V-strap. V-strap, anyway. Use that, they're very inexpensive. It's worth planting for you. The trees get these on it. If you want to do it yourself, they're very inexpensive. So, some other things we could wrap up and go to plants, because we could beat this dead horse for a while. I think, before you move the stakes, though, whatever you do, don't let it stake right next to the trunk. You want the trunk to be able to move, but not lean over. So you want it to flex in the wind. That's what makes it strong. If you put a stake right next to the trunk, it can't move. It's like a brace. If you put your arm into a cast for 2 years, what happens to the muscles? They're gone. The tree is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that when you're doing this, you'll think, okay, have I got this right? Have I got this right? Have I got this right? It's much simpler than all of this information might seem. It's just as Ken said. You're going to cut a bowl. You're going to amend the soil. You're going to fertilize, you're going to water it in, and you're going to make sure it's safe for the wind. Outside of that, there's a million little things that you could try to focus on.
That's called gardening.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah. So if you've got deer, something else too, if you got deer javelina, some of you are in that wildland interface, we just have wildlife right there. You bought the lot because it's got this beautiful thing. So you don't deal with that. If you've got that issue, you've seen deer nibble on things, they are going to take interest. The second there's something new, they notice. And they're really interested, and they're going, oh, hey, Fred, let's go check this out. I wonder if we can eat this. And they'll start.
It won't matter what it is. It won't matter if it's
If you've got that, get a bottle of deer and rabbit repellent or something. And as you plant it, they're going to come sniff it, taste it, see what it is. Just spritz this. This is made from garlic. This is actually a hot pepper wax. I've got another one made from rotten eggs and garlic. But just put something that repels them, so when they come and sniff it or taste it, they go, whoa, that is not good. Keep moving. Just realize they notice a new plant even before you do, and they take interest in it. Just some insight into it. With that, I thought I would cover, where did I do that? Let me cover some plants first, because they're pretty. We're starting to see color show up. So we're seeing already, someone's asked, what's that pink blooming tree? You're seeing a vase-shaped tree. It's got a light pink flower to it. That is purple leaf plum. It always blooms this time of year. Every year it announces we're spring. You see a white tree that's about, it's like ball shaped with a pure white, like bridal white flowers. That's Bradford pear. And then there's one just starting to open up, this one. This is called redbud. In another couple days, as soon as the next first bright day, this thing is going to be red. It's going to take off. This is redbud. You're starting to see those in the outside area starting to bloom now. There's kind of three things starting to happen all right now. We created a companion plant series, things that look good per month. So every month we decided what looks good that month that grows together. And so we have four things. Redbud is a really great March blooming plant. When it gets done blooming, it'll form a leaf that's about this size. It's heart-shaped. Very robust. In fact, there's a native variety that grows wild here, the western redbud. This one has to be a tree form instead of a shrub form, but it has the same heart-shaped leaf, same flower every year. It's the same thing. A companion with that is this guy. Anyone know what this is? Forsythia. We're famous for forsythia up here. It's blooming all over the county right now. There's a couple different varieties. You'll see 3 or 4 varieties or types of forsythia out there. And really what it comes down to is how tall does it grow. Normally they grow about head high like this. Then there's a dwarf variety that grows like this. And then there's a couple different sizes of flowers. So, but basically they all do this. It gets up to about head high, green foliage, great fall color, has aspen gold leaves before they drop. Very drought hardy. Animals do not eat this. Deer, rabbits, javelinas, don't bother. Neither with this. They don't bother this. A companion with that is pansies. Where are they at? Yes, show that off, will you? No. Always show plants like they're planters. They're all the same. Like this. Not up like this. Try it for yourself.
I feel afraid to even
tell
yourself. In my line of work, we don't ever tell plants.
So you're seeing pansies just because they love this kind of weather. You'll notice if you have pansies, they're almost doubling in size by the time the storm is done. So we came up with this. You'll see this kind of ad going out in the paper. It's just March companion plants. These are things that grow together in the same garden, same location. We try to pick a tree, a shrub, a ground cover, and a flower. So just try to one thing. If the whole team got together and said, oh, this is what's coming out, that's going to be great. So you'll look for that. Those are things that look good. I think rosemary, every yard should have a rosemary. I've got several. Again, they have the Tuscany or the tall shrub type of rosemary, and then there's a ground cover variety. This is one you need to be a little bit careful, because rosemaries, there's a whole series of them that are desert lovers. They do not winter over up here. So if you get the wrong variety, it will die over the winter. Southern SoCal will have quite a few tropical, less hardy type of rosemaries. But the ground cover or the upright shrub varieties, they're evergreen. They're starting to bloom now, so the bees love to forage over them. It's a pollinator kind of plant. And then all of them can be used culinary. They'll have that great fragrance. And animals do not eat herbs. Whether it's a lavender, thyme, they do not like herbs. We do, but they don't. I don't know why. I think it's because of fragrance or the oils or something.
So much for them.
Yeah. They do love this one. Red tip photinia. This is probably the #1 seller, so I bring it to you so you know what it is. All the new growth is red. This one is called Red Dynamo. It's a new variety. This is the first year it's been out. A little bit smaller foliage, stays more compact, and the reds are supposed to be more intense, brighter. So animals can't eat this one a little bit.
I love these plants. I see them all over. You know, I'll plant for people who get more of these, or they'll get other companion shrubs or other flowers and near these. I see them everywhere, and they do so well in all parts of the Quad Cities. And every place that I've been so far planting for waters, I've seen varieties of these grow.
Oh yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
But you'll only find Red Dynamo one place, at Waters Garden Center. Yeah.
You can make that a hedge.
You can.
Certainly. In fact, I would say that it's probably one of the more common hedges that you'll see.
Yeah. This is a pincushion flower, because the flowers look like a pincushion. Butterfly magnet. It's like a butterfly landing pad. Jump, you'll just see butterflies all over this thing. Monarchs, swallowtails, painted ladies. You're going to have butterflies. This is a perennial. Comes back every year. Remember, perennial and permanent will start with P. It keeps coming back for you. And then the companion with that one is, this is Gaura, G-A-U-R-A. Again, you'll have this list, whether you can find the list, but these will be on the list that are coming to you. These are great perennial flowers that will come back year after year. Again, I find this one, hummingbirds cannot resist it. They have, when they see that bloom, they can't look away. They start bickering over this flower. They love it. It gets up about, I don't know, the flower is going to hover above the foliage. This will elongate up to about right there, and it just kind of waves in the wind. It's a great little mountain perennial for here. Every yard should have one. Yeah.
Can you put that in a flower box?
You can put this in a flower box. I put this because it's so tough. It's actually a zero-scape kind of plant. I put this out by my mailbox where the irrigation really doesn't run. It's just kind of, it's really tough. It's got the driveway, road, the sidewalk. That's a hard spot to grow things. I put a couple of these. I'm going to do it by my mailbox. And goes, oh, how pretty. So yeah, it's a Gaura. It's easy. They will need some water, especially to establish even true native plants. Because their roots are so defined, they need to grow out for a couple seasons before they get enough root mass to go on their own. Generally, what I'll do with this is I'll put it on a drip system, add it to my irrigation, and I'll water it for a year. The following spring, I'll take the emitter, I'll bend it back and tape it off. So I could reactivate it if I so chose. I never have, but the gardener in me says, just in case, I can help you out. Redbuds, same way. I'd water it until it gets up to size. Because they're kind of small. It should be about 12 foot by 7, 8 feet wide, and it's this beautiful umbrella shape. It takes some food and water to really get it up and to that size. Once it's that size, I'll again bend it over and cut it off. The native kind of stuff. Your first 2 years, I think you'll find that your plant will need a little assistance. It'll just kind of, it'll need that little extra water. It'll need, you kind of watch it a little bit. Why don't you hold up the lavender? Since we did the rosemary, I'll do it later. Yeah, sounds good. That's perfect. There you go. Lavenders, we're famous for our lavenders. Our herbs. Herbs will grow better here than anywhere else in the country. Herbs love bright light and arid and dry climate. So they'll grow better in the Midwest, the South, where it's more humid. They get leaf spots, damping off. There's some things that happen to them in more wet spots or really cold areas. Here, it's like the perfect place to grow herbs. Mint is like almost an invasive. It's a weed sometimes. Rosemary, like you mentioned, I've seen some rosemary bushes that go beyond anything I've ever seen before anywhere else. Yeah, that's right. So we got several varieties of lavenders. They're kind of all starting to come into bloom. This is a new variety. It's a white lavender. I knew it dealing with gardeners. You've never seen this plant before. I've never seen it before. I've never planted it. A white lavender, this is pretty standard. This is the norm, put them side by side. But then to see this white variety, super, super unusual. I get excited. Actually, some plants bore me. Like red tip rotinia, I've gone, I told Val, I put my kid through grad school on red tip rotinia only. But to see new plants, it's kind of like Christmas all over as a kid. It's like, it's just fun.
Is that a Spanish?
This is Spanish. We've also got English, French, since I'm talking about the lavender gal.
varieties?
It's good. There's a variety because this is like the perfect environment. My prettiest lavender, just some design tips. I had this exact plant in an oxblood red glazed pot, about this tall, this big around. I put one of these in the middle. This thing turned into this beautiful mounding, glorious, just lavender is pretty without blooms. But these keep pushing up blooms. Also, another insider tip: we're talking lavender. We're talking lavender. I'm a flower grower. I get excited about flowers. I put together a fertilizer down there called Flower Power. It's a liquid, and you mix up your watering can and fertilize these about every other week or so, twice a month or so. You will have unbelievable flowers coming up like you've never seen. The colors will be brighter. You have more flowers.
And you'll see it in all of the flowers that are established here.
Again, can you turn the heaters on again? I'm getting cold. Anyone else getting chilled? I'm getting like, I mean, we turn it off so the people on Facebook can hear us, but you should be in here right now. So enjoying the cold with us. So it might be a little bit noisy in just a second. So we're doing, we got a couple more to go. Again, these are perennials. I use this one a lot in my own gardens. I've got several of these. I've got Dark Night, which is a darker purple than this. This is a new variety. It's called Rose Marble. Again, brand new introduction. Usually salvias are purple or blue. This is as tall as it gets, and then it spreads in mounds like this. It becomes a great big circle, and then it just does this constantly. It's amazing. It does it really early. I find my hummingbirds and butterflies love it. When it gets done blooming, I'll take the lawnmower. Or a weed whacker. I'll just cut or hedgers. Something quick. I'll whack off these top spent flowers. I'll fertilize it with the all-purpose food. It goes right back into bloom just like that. If you can force things to repeat bloom, because our season is so long, you can really get the most out of it. And this is, again, anytime you hear the word salvia or sage, it's a great plant for here. Salvia and sage, they're like herbals. You'll have this sagey like scent to it. Animals don't bother it. Rabbits, pack rats, they don't bother it.
Does sage come in different colors?
Sage comes in different colors. Mainly, this particular sage only comes in 3 colors: blue, purple, and rose. So, great little plant here. If you've struggled, it's a bright spot, kind of rough soil, put one of these in, it will take over. Anytime you hear the word pink, dianthus, or carnation, they're all the same family of plants. This, I think, is a carnation. Pinks are a little bit smaller. They look have the same blue foliage, but a little bit smaller flower, a little more compact. But again, these are perennials that come back every year. They typically have blue foliage. I like it because it's evergreen in my gardens. Keeps its foliage year-round. Doesn't bloom year-round, although mine are starting to show color just like this in my own gardens. This particular one will grow about this tall in a mound. It's great against walkways, go to the front door, front edge of a cottage garden kind of thing, raised beds. This one is just a magical, long-blooming kind of perennial that comes back every year. Good perennial season here. We went over the pansy already. Why don't you, show that up. That is a PJM rhododendron. People don't believe we can grow rhododendrons and azaleas here, but they do really, really well. The secret with these, though, is you need to give them a little bit of shade in the summer. So this one will grow just fine. The tag says grows in full sun. Well, in Boston it does. In Chicago it does, but not here. At this elevation, the brightness is more harsh. So you need to give it a little protection so that north side of the house, in the entryway, go into the front door. That's where you put under the canopy of other trees, in the pines. It'll take a lot of sun. Just needs to have a break. That mid-June, it's just so hard. That's our hardest month to grow things here is June. Some of your plants will look a little rough. Get through June, just get them through. The monsoons are coming. As soon as July 4th hits, the humidity goes up. You get some afternoon rains every once in a while, and the plants just start taking off with new growth. So just get them to limp through. That's the seasonality that we're dealing with here in the mountains of Arizona. Yep.
When's the best time time to plant this now? Or do you
Now's a great time. Now is, I would say, ideal time. Well, that you'll hear Mother's Day actually.
Yeah.
That's from non-gardeners. So as soon as you hear someone say, "Oh, you don't plant till Mother's Day," you're not talking to a gardener. You're talking to a tomato grower.
Yeah, a plant enthusiast.
So that's our last frost. Typically, the locals use Mother's Day as our last frost date. So that's when you start putting in all of your summer plants. So typically that's going to be a vegetable gardener. So when they say that, they're growing zinnias, tomatoes, watermelons, that kind of stuff. But that's not us. We're gardeners. We want spring gardens too. These are all spring bloomers. So you want their best planted in the spring. And they like the rain, they like the cold nights, bright days. That's when you plant them.
And another word that he uses, typically, it's really hard for you guys. I would never really put like a single day on the calendar as the day I start planting.
Yeah.
We go outside every day. See how the weather is. If you guys, does anybody here use moisture meters in here? A moisture meter is just a little tool.
Best tool ever.
I recommend it every single planting. It is. A lot of people are more familiar with them if they use it for houseplants. But it's like almost a foot long little rod. You bring it into the ground, and it's got a dial on the top reading from 1 to 10. 8, 9, 10 is in blue. It's too much water. 1, 2, 3 is in red. Not enough water. That middle, 7, 8, 6, 7, 7, 6, 5, 4 is the kind of the perfect what you're looking for range of moisture. And during this time of year, where we're transitioning from all that freezing and all this moisture into kind of a drier, much hotter period, it's so good for you guys to be able to know, especially because you can't dig out the plant to see how moist it is down there. So you've got to be able to have something to kind of check and see where you're sitting in during the different parts of the season.
So how many new, this is your first season growing here? Is that a third, half the class? Good. Welcome. It's great. Welcome to God's country. It's a great place.
Yeah.
You'll struggle. Because it's different. It's just different. Our goal here is to get you where you're making less mistakes, or at least you're making mistakes in the right direction.
Yes.
Gardening is mistakes. You never get it right on. And then if you need more design help or ideas, insider tip, if you follow Waters Garden Center on Instagram or Facebook, those pictures taken, like this morning, I was out working out. I was just working out, going down Williamson Valley Road. I went, oh, the Bradford pears are blown. I pulled my phone out and went, let me show you what a Bradford pear is. This is how they grow. Look, it's a commercial setting. It's going to grow even better in your own backyard where gardeners taking care of them. If you want ideas of what's blooming or some design ideas, I try to post those pretty regularly. And it's local, it's us. It's my phone, basically. By the time the year is over, you will have seen my entire backyard. Pretty much a lot of pictures come from my own gardens.
And we do have occasionally some people's from other yards that I do. I'll take the occasional picture. We try to get, people who really go all out and above and beyond. We try to get that kind of idea brought in here as well. We like to share ideas, I think, kind of bring that community of design in.
Question. How does ice plant do well? It does extremely well. Now, succulents, we're in good succulent country. We do not grow cacti. We got prickly pear, cholla, some hedgehogs, little tiny, chubby little multi-stem things.
That's it.
But your saguaro, your tall things, if you want a phoenix garden up here, you can't have it. They get too cold.
And are animals interested in ice plants?
They generally will leave it alone. Sometimes the javelina go after it, pack rats can go after it, sometimes. So be careful. Now, ice plant is generally or portulaca would be another one, or sedums. They're all kind of related to each other. We have a lot of sedums that grow here that are much like ice plants, that are perennial. They come back every year. In fact, we put together our own mixes in the lower greenhouse. Take a look. But yes, it will do very, very well. Okay? In rock gardens, that kind of stuff.
Does Waters have a list of all the plants that are deer and rabbit resistant?
Yeah. So, do we have a list of deer and rabbit resistant plant lists? I think I've got that list down in the store. You'll see a post with a whole bunch of, just ask the folks inside, go, hey, I heard there's a deer list, rabbit list. Or you can go online. and it's on our website. So the website, watersgardencenter.com, it's got a search bar at the top. You can just go deer-resistant plant list. Oh, it'll pop up every deer article, deer video, deer, anything we've done, deer classes. It really focuses in on our content. Anytime we do anything, we put it on the website. It's got like over 1,000 pages on this website. It's ridiculous, actually.
And what about buffalo grass?
Buffalo grass, what about it?
How does it do?
Does well. Buffalo grass does very, very, low growing. Blue grama and buffalo are kind of related. Both of those grow here. The reason I don't care for buffalo myself, and here's why. It's brown over half the year, so it's a summer grass, kind of like Bermuda. I prefer fescues, they're green year-round, or I prefer creeping thyme.
What was the other way you said not buffalo?
Blue grama, and buffalo grass. They're kind of, Google both of those. They're both.
Brown a lot?
Yeah. Just, it's a native grass. I'm talking to a native gal, love it. So it's a native grass, it grows wild. Not as much of a mowing grass, just a low growing native grass. Another one you might consider, down inside the store, we made our own native mix. It's called Meadow Mix. We took buffalo, blue grama, a couple other things. We added some wildflowers to it and called it Meadow Mix. Because a lot of folks want, it's not a mowing grass by any means. It's made to re-veg, the septic fields, that kind of stuff, the backyard, that kind of thing. Yep. With that, I can't thank Will enough. He came out of the field. He's actually been doing irrigation. He came out of the trenches literally for me.
I look like a planter. I don't know if you guys know
Yeah, thank you. You can't realize what you got here. We don't hire just muscle, we hire experts. Will is a true expert, and he does all of our technical, it died. What happened? He does all of our fix-it kind of stuff. He is a wealth of knowledge, and he does not spend any time in the garden center.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you where to find the peonies, but I'll plant your peonies for you.
Yeah,
anywhere.
He's the guy